The atmosphere in the global MMA scene has once again heated up with another exchange of barbs between Islam Makhachev and his already well-known rival, Ilia Topuria. The Dagestani fighter, a former lightweight champion and considered by many experts to have been the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world until very recently, didn't hold back in criticizing the Spaniard and even dropped a heavy accusation. According to Makhachev, Topuria is deliberately avoiding facing one of the toughest challenges in the lightweight division, the Armenian Arman Tsarukyan. This whole situation unfolds at a turning point in Islam's career. After years of dominance at lightweight, where he defeated names like Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier, the Russian made a bold choice to move up to welterweight. His debut could not be bigger at UFC 322 against none other than champion Jack Della Maddalena in a fight that is already on the short list of the year's most highly anticipated matchups. This move opened the door for Ilia Topuria to capture the lightweight belt, something that Islam views with a certain bitterness, precisely because, in his eyes, the Spaniard has not yet taken on the toughest available challenges in the division. Makhachev didn't mince words in a recent interview. It's no secret that Ilia Topuria is avoiding Arman Tsarukyan. I've already seen comments from him saying things like, "I'd rather retire than fight Arman. Arman is on a great streak, and in my opinion, he's the toughest test that exists today for the champion." Those remarks set the fan base on fire, since debates over the future of the lightweight division were already in full swing. Topuria, who has skyrocketed in popularity thanks to his aggressive style, his extreme confidence, and his sharp trash talk, has constantly been linked to potential fights against big names. Arman Tsarukyan, currently ranked number 2, is on a meteoric rise and has proven to be a nightmare matchup for anyone in the division. Former interim champion Justin Gaethje, known as one of the most violent strikers in the history of the weight class, has also been floated as a possible opponent. And even Paddy Pimblett, the Englishman who shares a personal rivalry with Topuria, was briefly on the radar after their face-off back in July. Yet up to now, the Spaniard has avoided locking in any of those names as his next opponent. This silence only fueled Makhachev's criticism, as the Russian took the opportunity to pour gasoline on the fire. In his view, if Topuria doesn't face Tsarukyan, he will struggle to truly cement himself as the rightful king of the lightweight division. But the most impactful moment in this story came from another massive voice. Not just massive, but legendary. The iconic Khabib Nurmagomedov, who retired undefeated and immortalized himself in the UFC Hall of Fame, entered the conversation and made a blunt assessment of a potential showdown between Topuria and Tsarukyan. "I don't see Topuria having a chance against Tsarukyan. Arman fights very well at distance against strikers. He keeps range intelligently, he uses kicks better, and now he's a much more complete fighter. If they had fought 3 years ago, maybe Arman wouldn't have been so cautious. But today, it's already clear what dangers Topuria brings. And in my opinion, the best lightweight in the world right now is Arman Tsarukyan." Khabib's words were like throwing fuel on an already blazing fire. After all, the Eagle of Dagestan is not known for giving out compliments lightly. His endorsement of Tsarukyan elevates the Armenian into a position of prestige, almost as if he were the spiritual heir to the legacy of dominant grapplers that came from that region. It's impossible not to remember that Islam Makhachev himself, Khabib's protege, built his empire in the UFC based on that exact same suffocating style of grappling. Constant pressure, positional dominance, and near superhuman conditioning. What's interesting is how Makhachev's criticism of Topuria connects directly to this. While the Spaniard has built his reputation as an aggressive, extremely precise striker with knockout power at any moment, the glaring Achilles heel in his career remains his lack of truly decisive wins against elite grapplers. Tsarukyan, on the other hand, brings exactly those credentials. He already faced Makhachev in 2019, in his very first UFC fight, and even back then, without the experience he has now, he proved to be a very tough opponent, taking the fight to the distance. and earning praise for his resilience. Since then, Tsarukyan has evolved dramatically and has become one of the most dangerous fighters in the sport. That sets up an intriguing scenario. If Topuria really does avoid Tsarukyan, as Makhachev suggests, it could damage his reputation as a champion willing to face the best. On the other hand, if he accepts the challenge, the Spaniard will have to deal with a matchup that, according to Khabib, may expose his greatest vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, Islam Makhachev's immediate future is already mapped out in the welterweight division. But that doesn't mean the Russian will stop commenting on the weight class he ruled for years. His rivalry with Topuria seems far from cooling off, and their mutual jabs keep fueling the narrative of a potential clash down the line, should their paths ever cross again. As always, the UFC takes advantage of this war of words to keep speculation alive. For fans, the math is simple. Topuria versus Tsarukyan would be a fascinating clash of styles, a true collision between elite grappling and explosive striking. And if it happens, the fight could redefine the entire direction of the lightweight division, either solidifying Topuria as a legitimate champion or crowning Tsarukyan as the natural successor to the Dagestani lineage. Until then, all that remains are the taunts, the predictions, and of course, the anticipation. Islam Makhachev continues to be one of the most influential voices in MMA today. And when he accuses someone of ducking a fight, the whole world pays attention. And if Khabib Nurmagomedov reinforces that narrative, the debate takes on even greater weight. The big question is Ilia Topuria truly avoiding Arman Tsarukyan? Or is this all just part of a game of provocations designed to heat up the market? Only time will tell. The process of moving up in weight class is, without a doubt, one of the biggest challenges in any fighter's career. And when we talk about Islam Makhachev, the reigning lightweight champion and widely considered one of the most complete athletes in the UFC, the expectations grow even higher. After all, it's not every day that a dominant champion in one division decides to climb in weight to chase glory in a second category. According to Magomed Magomedov, a longtime training partner and close friend of the Russian, Makhachev has finally overcome one of the trickiest hurdles of this transition, gaining muscle mass and fully adapting to his new weight. Magomedov, who currently competes in the PFL and is preparing to face Sergio Pettis on October 3rd in Dubai, has been closely following Islam's preparation at the famed camp led by Khabib Nurmagomedov in Dagestan. The shift from 70 kg, 155 pounds, to 77 kilograms, 170 pounds, isn't just about stepping on the scale. It involves meticulous adjustments in diet, supplementation, training intensity, and even the choice of sparring partners. Makhachev, who had previously admitted difficulties in maintaining weight gains and adapting to his new frame, now seems to have found the right formula, at least according to Magomedov's reports. Speaking to Bloody Elbow, the Dagestani fighter didn't hold back in praising the champion. Islam looks huge right now. He's already gained a lot of muscle mass, and even switched up his training partners. He looks like a different person at the moment, and there's still plenty of time until November. I think when the fight arrives, he's going to be in his absolute best form. It's going to be a big fight. Magomedov's comments draw attention because Islam has always been known for his almost obsessive discipline with training and physical preparation. The big difference this time, though, is that he no longer has to endure such brutal weight cuts to hit the lightweight limit. Instead of draining his body of muscle and energy, the focus is now on gaining strength, explosiveness, and endurance in a naturally bigger frame. That could translate into an even more dangerous version of Islam than the one who already dominated everyone at 155 pounds. Another important point highlighted by Magomedov is the team's confidence that Makhachev will not only be able to handle Jack Della Maddalena style, but potentially beat him in the very area where the Australian is most feared, striking. If you think about it, it's going to be easier for Islam in terms of the weight cut, because Della Maddalena is big and has to cut a lot, so he'll probably look smaller on fight night. Considering Islam's skill set, he's more versatile. Grappling is his strength, obviously, but I don't think he'll fall behind in striking. On the contrary, I think Islam will be the one landing the shots. That perspective opens up a very interesting debate. Up to now, Makhachev has largely been seen as the legitimate heir to Khabib Nurmagomedov's legacy, the suffocating grappler who applies relentless pressure and breaks opponents on the ground. But in recent years, Islam has shown notable evolution in his striking, especially with his kicking game, distance control, and fast combinations. That versatility may very well be the difference maker against Della Maddalena, who is considered one of the sharpest and most creative strikers in MMA today. It's worth remembering that Jack Della Maddalena, the welterweight champion, built his reputation in the UFC as a true striking artist. His volume, precision, and ability to remain calm under fire have made him one of the most dangerous men in the division. Many analysts believe that, at least on paper, his aggressive style represents the biggest threat to Makhachev. Yet, the reports coming out of the Dagestani camp suggest a different narrative. That Islam is not only prepared to deal with Della Maddalena's striking, but may actually dictate the pace of the fight in that very department. This kind of confidence inside a team doesn't come out of nowhere. Historically, Khabib's camp has been very realistic in its assessments, often praising opponents when there's a genuine danger. So, if Magomedov insists that Islam will land the shots against Della Maddalena, it's because in training he's already showing significant progress in that area. Weight cutting is another factor not to be overlooked. While Della Maddalena will need to drastically reduce to make the 170-pound limit, Islam will likely go through the process much more comfortably, arriving at fight night more hydrated and better recovered. This difference might seem subtle, but at the highest level, details like cardio in the 4th or 5th round can determine who walks out of the cage with the belt. Training in Dubai and at Khabib's academy, surrounded by elite fighters like Usman Nurmagomedov and other renowned grapplers, also guarantees that Makhachev is being tested against a wide variety of styles, simulating the exact scenarios he may face against Della Maddalena. The adaptation in training partners, as Magomedov pointed out, is another key detail. It's not about training with whoever's available, but specifically selecting athletes whose styles resemble the opponent's, maximizing the chances of success when it matters most. At the end of the day, what Magomedov conveys in his statements is a kind of quiet confidence, almost typical of the Dagestani MMA mentality. Meticulous preparation, built on discipline and focus, without unnecessary noise, but with the certainty that when fight night comes, Islam Makhachev will be ready to write another chapter in the history of the sport. If he manages to defeat Jack Della Maddalena at Madison Square Garden in November, Makhachev won't just become a two-division champion. He'll also cement his name among the all-time greats, standing shoulder to shoulder with legends like Georges St-Pierre, Daniel Cormier, and Henry Cejudo, all of whom also captured belts in multiple weight classes. The message coming from behind the scenes is crystal clear. Islam Makhachev is not just moving up a division, he's reinventing himself. And if everything goes according to plan, he may well end up even more dominant at welterweight than he ever was at lightweight. Throughout MMA history, whenever a dominant champion has decided to move up in weight, an inevitable question arises. Will his physical strength and fighting style translate with the same effectiveness against naturally bigger athletes? In Islam Makhachev's case, that question has been fueling fans and analysts ever since he confirmed his welterweight debut against Jack Della Maddalena at UFC 322. The anticipation for this clash isn't just about the chance for Makhachev to become a double champ, but also to find out whether he can impose the same authority at 170 pounds that he once had at 155. One man who is adamant that this will not be a problem is Javier Mendez, the longtime head coach of American Kickboxing Academy, aka, responsible for molding generations of champions, including none other than Khabib Nurmagomedov, Cain Velasquez, Daniel Cormier, and Luke Rockhold. In a recent statement, the AKA coach was emphatic in highlighting what he believes may be Makhachev's biggest advantage: his sheer physical strength, which Mendez considers even greater than Khabib's during their years training side by side. Or think the biggest difference on our side is that Makhachev is very strong. Incredibly strong, he is super strong. Out of all the lightweights I've ever trained, he's the strongest of them all. I don't remember any lightweight who was stronger than him. Not even close. He's the strongest. So out of everyone who's come through here, he's the guy with the best chance of handling the strength of the bigger guys. That statement carries weight for several reasons. First, because Mendes has worked with some of the greatest fighters in MMA history. He knows exactly what it means to deal with athletes overflowing with power and physical durability. If, in his eyes, Makhachev is the strongest lightweight he's ever seen, that puts the champion in a very special category. Moreover, Makhachev's run at lightweight reinforces this view. During his rise to the title, the Dagestani built a record, full of dominant wins, in which he often seemed to toss around his opponents as if they were smaller than they actually were. The way he threw rivals with judo-style takedowns, controlled positions, and smothered opponents with rapid transitions always stood out for the ease with which he executed such moves. It was as if his raw strength perfectly complemented the Ilia refined technique inherited from the Nurmagomedov lineage. The difference now is that the challenge has changed. At welterweight, Islam will face taller fighters with longer reaches who are used to handling heavier shots. Jack Della Maddalena, for instance, is not only an excellent striker, but also someone who undergoes a significant weight cut, meaning he enters the cage even bigger than the divisional limit. In this context, Islam's ability to maintain his relative strength, or perhaps even amplify it, will be a decisive factor in determining whether he can replicate the same success formula that made him king at 155 pounds. History shows how tricky this process can be. Many dominant champions have struggled to impose their games after moving up. Anderson Silva, for example, shined in select light heavyweight bouts, but never sought to establish himself there permanently. Jose Aldo, one of the greatest featherweights of all time, faced difficulties adapting to bantamweight. Even Khabib Nurmagomedov, with all his strength and undefeated record, never risked moving up in weight, perhaps aware of the physical differences he'd encounter. On the flip side, there are examples of success that inspire hope for Makhachev's fans. Georges St-Pierre, when he moved up to face Michael Bisping at middleweight, showed that strategy and intelligence can overcome physical disparities. Daniel Cormier, after excelling as a light heavyweight champion, went up to heavyweight and captured the title with authority, proving that skill, preparation, and relative strength can offset size disadvantages. Islam clearly wants to join that select group of fighters who not only tried but succeeded in becoming double champions. The central point is that Makhachev's strength has always been a defining factor at lightweight. He didn't just control opponents, he often immobilized them with almost embarrassing ease. What Mendes suggests is that this very trait might become even more impactful at welterweight, since Islam won't have to drain himself through brutal weight cuts. On the contrary, he'll step into the cage more hydrated, more resilient, and possibly even more explosive. Another crucial detail mentioned by Mendes is the team's confidence. American Kickboxing Academy has a long history of preparing fighters for changes in division, and his words carry weight in this type of analysis. If he believes Makhachev will succeed in handling welterweight's power, it's because he's already seen Islam dealing daily with bigger training partners, welterweights and even heavyweights who train alongside him in San Jose. That internal confidence, combined with Islam's almost military-like discipline and training, creates a formula that could make his debut against Della Maddalena a memorable spectacle. It's not just about testing whether Makhachev can compete at welterweight. It's about discovering whether he can dominate there as well, paving the way to becoming a double champion and cementing himself firmly in the greatest of all-time debate. If he proves that his strength truly translates into victories, against bigger athletes, Islam will have taken a monumental step toward immortality in the sport. And for Javier Mendes, this isn't just a possibility. It's already a reality visible in training. The ultimate question, though, is this: will that strength, considered unmatched at lightweight, be enough to neutralize the precision and aggression of one of today's most dangerous strikers? The MMA world will only get the answer the day Islam Makhachev finally steps into the cage at UFC 322. Until then, one thing is certain. He has already earned the trust of the people, who know him best. And in combat sports, that's often the clearest sign that something historic may be on the horizon.